Every single secret you send online, passwords, bank transfers, private messages, rests on the same idea. The assumption is that some mathematical problems are easy to do and brutally hard to undo. Hard enough that with today's computers, reversing them would take longer than the universe has even existed. That's basically it. That's what everything rests on: banking, encrypted messaging, government systems, even the loose idea that privacy online still means something. But assumptions only work while the world around them stays stable. And that stability is starting to wobble. A different kind of computer is being built. Not just faster, different. And under its rules, some of the problems we rely on for security don't behave the way we expect. Online security isn't enforced by policy or goodwill. It's enforced by math. Public key cryptography sits underneath almost everything. Secure websites, messaging apps, software updates, digital payments. It works because of imbalance. Some calculations are intentionally one-sided. Multiplying two massive prime numbers together is easy. Going backwards, working out which primes produce a given number, isn't. Not in any reasonable time frame, at least. That imbalance lets us do something unusual. You can publish a public key, anyone can use it to lock something for you, but only you can unlock it, because only you have the private key. In theory, someone could derive that private key. There's no law of nature stopping them. It's just that, with classical computers, doing so would take an absurd amount of time. Cryptography has always lived in that gap. Not impossible, just impractical. For a long time, that was enough. Even nation-state adversaries couldn't realistically break strong encryption at scale. So the systems held. Attackers don't need to break encryption today for it to still be valuable to them. Intelligence agencies have been very open about this. Encrypted data is intercepted, collected, and stored, not because it's readable now, because it might be later. This idea even has a name: harvest now, decrypt later. The assumption isn't that decryption is guaranteed. It's that the data is worth keeping just in case. And once you see security through that lens, encryption starts to look less like a permanent shield and more like a delay. Every computer you use today works the same way. At its core, bits, zeros, and ones. Everything eventually collapses into binary choices. Quantum computers don't work like that. They use qubits, which behave in ways that don't map cleanly onto classical intuition. They can exist in combinations of states, not as a metaphor, but as a physical property. That allows quantum systems to explore many possibilities at once, not by brute force, but by reshaping the problem itself. This doesn't make quantum computers universally powerful. That's a complete myth. But for a small number of specific problems, they change the economics completely. One of those problems is factorization. In the 1990s, Peter Shor showed that a sufficiently capable quantum computer could factor large numbers exponentially, faster than classical machines. It didn't mean encryption was suddenly broken. It meant the assumption underneath it was conditional. Systems like RSA and elliptic curve cryptography rely on certain problems staying hard. Quantum computing changes how hard those problems really are. To be clear, we don't yet have a quantum computer that can do this at scale. Building one remains extremely difficult. But cryptography can't wait for certainty. If data needs to stay confidential for decades, then future capability matters. And most experts now agree that cryptographically relevant quantum computers are within a window that is plausible. That's enough to make stored encrypted data a long-term liability. The response to this situation, for the most part, hasn't been panic. It's been preparation. For years, cryptographers have been developing post-quantum cryptography, systems based on mathematical problems that don't seem to become easy even for quantum machines. These methods abandon prime factorization entirely. Instead, they rely on things like high-dimensional lattices, problems that remain difficult in a much deeper sense. In 2024, after a long global process, official post-quantum standards were published. The hard part now isn't the theory of it, it's the migration over to the new standards. Encryption is everywhere, embedded in hardware protocols, libraries, and legacy systems nobody wants to touch. A lot of it was never designed to change, so the shift will be slow, uneven, sometimes messy. For a long time, systems will run old and new cryptography side by side, simply to keep things functioning. There are also more extreme approaches like quantum key distribution. It's limited and expensive, but reflects a broader shift. Security is no longer about building something unbreakable. It's about reducing how much damage is possible when assumptions eventually fail. This isn't the end of digital security. It's the end of pretending secrecy lasts forever. Quantum computing doesn't mean encryption suddenly fails. It means the protection your data relies on has a shelf life. The real risk isn't tomorrow. It's that the things you create today, private messages, backups, old emails, cloud storage, may still exist decades from now, when the assumptions protecting them no longer hold. Start by keeping less data. Delete old accounts. Clear cloud backups you don't need. Don't archive everything just in case. Use services that update their security automatically. If a platform isn't actively maintained, it won't magically survive a cryptographic shift. Protect access, not just data. If something would hurt you in 20 years, assume it could still exist then. In the quantum era, secrecy doesn't disappear, but it stops being passive. Privacy becomes something you practice, not something you just assume. And that change from trust to awareness is the real shift that's already underway.